Hello and welcome to the Canon podcast, your home on the Star Wars Underworld podcast network for in-depth discussion on lore, the High Republic, and the whole canon of the galaxy far, far away. My name is Matthew Neugebauer, and I am joined across the continent by your friend of mine, Mr. Joel Davis. Joel, how are you doing this week?
Doing good, doing well.
Right on. We are both super excited for tonight's show. Let's bring in our guest right now. Nice and quick there. She's done art for Star Wars, IDW, Dark Horse, DC, and most recently, for our purposes, Hyperspace Stories #2. It is Toronto's own Megan Huang. How you doing, Megan?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Pretty good.
Yeah, cool.
There we go. Again, excited to have you on. You are actually our first, Star Wars creative. To come
yeah?
on. So yeah, you are. So
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. So hey, get to set some
History.
precedents here. There we go. Before we get going, I'll do some quick plugs here. You can follow us on Twitter, Instagram at IonCannonPod. And we'll do plugs again at the end, but Twitter, Instagram at IonCannonPod. Tractor Beam, I'll just mention again quickly on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. My weekly comic book reviews every Thursday or Friday. This past week did Dr. Aphra #24 and Han and Chewie #6. That Aphra comic, it's really going strong. So yeah, looking forward to more issues of that coming out. All right. Instead of the usual eyes on screen, in honor of our guest, and also because kind of a nod to our sibling podcast, Tales from Beyond the Galaxy, we're going to talk about Rings of Power. Spoiler alert, by the way. So I'll bring that down in case you haven't seen Rings of Power and you want to. Jump ahead or go get a drink and then come back for the interview portion proper. But spoilers coming up. The last episode, Doom Kaboom. That's just the ending of
the
it.
name of the episode itself.
Is that the name of the episode? Yeah, and I'll just say quickly before Megan, I'll turn it to you. Your thoughts. This is a series I wasn't so sure on as it's progressed. Not sure what was adding too many things going on, but the last episode, a lot of us have been hyping it up and watched it and quite enjoyed how it moved the story along. So Megan, I know you tweeted about the latest episode. What are your thoughts on that series so far and on that latest episode?
I've liked it since episode 1. I'm just like easy to please. I'm not sure, but I think it's definitely visually stunning, and the story, I think it's pretty great, and it has that like Game of Thrones feel where it's like not like the feel, but like following all the different characters, and then I'm sure they're going to meet up, all of them, at some point. Which I miss that in House of the Dragon. I miss that like we get to follow these separate characters on their journey. But yeah, like I think most recent episode was pretty. I was shocked. I was like, oh, that's what the sword does. Whoa, okay. I'm not sure how they're gonna get out of that, but we'll see. I'm sure it'll be really cool, like how they survive it, or yeah. I'm trying not to say spoilers, but
You could spoil away up
Yeah.
till the last episode if you want. I got Doom Kaboom right there. That's
Yeah.
that's pretty vague.
That's fair. Okay.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, I've liked it. I think it's great.
Yeah.
So I have to ask you, Megan. A lot of my group always have this one question, and I'm curious what your thoughts are. Who do you think is Sauron? Who do you think it is? Who is the most... Do you have any guesses?
I don't know. I'm not even sure that he's in the show right now. Like, I don't know. Maybe he's not even there. Like I have a feeling like he's not even there yet. He's still lurking in the shadows or something. But yeah, everyone I thought could be him has kind of like, they don't seem like schemy enough. Maybe they're good fakers, good actors.
Right.
But I feel like he's not there yet. I feel like he's still like chilling out somewhere else, and we haven't seen him. I don't know.
Fair point.
I mean, it's an interesting question. I mean, in my ignorance, I was sure it was Adar, but then I realized
Mhm.
no, it can't possibly be Adar because Sauron's not an elf, right?
Yeah.
So,
Nope.
I mean, Joel, to answer your question, then I'll throw it to you. What you think of the series so far? I mean, I think Megan said he's probably not there. Similar
Mhm.
to that the what's the wizard guy with who's with the was it Harfoots?
Huffwits.
Yeah,
Mhm.
hobbits, who I think is probably Radagast, but that's another thing. Yeah, I think he comes from heaven or materializes or whatever, he's this
Mhm.
other sort of being. So
Oh
I don't know.
well,
That's my theory.
as for me, like I love the show. I've loved the show since day one. I love all Tolkien's work. I love the movies, and it's like getting to see all this second age stuff, which has never been really on screen or developed, even within the materials outside of the appendices, has been really fun. I love Galadriel. I think
Mhm.
she's probably like one of my favorite characters. She's amazing. Um, Elrond and Durin are the bro of bros. I love them so
Yeah.
much. They are the BFFs. I love them so much. I love every time they're on screen. Uh that's been awesome. This latest episode was so exciting seeing, well, I guess now I'll just say the spoiler. I'll do the spoiler.
Yeah.
Seeing the birth of Mordor in its entirety was awesome. A fun fact, that is scientific. What they did was more or less scientifically accurate of how you can
Interesting.
get a volcano to erupt. You put cold water in magma and it will explode.
Huh.
So there is a scientific precedent to that. Um, it's cool. I am curious. I think Megan's right. I don't think we've seen Sauron yet on screen. We all think maybe Halliburton is Sauron. We didn't. Some people thought it was Adar, but no. Um, some people thought it was Meteor Man, probably not. So I think Halliburton, the man dude, is gonna be the Witch King. That's my pet theory.
Right.
Um,
Maybe.
but
Yeah,
no,
I can
this
see
show
that.
has been amazing. It's really cool just seeing all this lore develop and just the
Mhm.
history of Middle Earth kind of play out.
Mhm.
And it's gonna be cool seeing the events move forward as we actually start to get to the whole forging of the actual rings of power.
Yes.
Right. It's in the title. There we go. Maybe Megan, before we do dive into Star Wars, maybe a general question. And either way is an acceptable answer, of course. But I mean, you have a more professional understanding of story and setup and motivations, having written your own stories and done art for stories. Does that affect the way you watch TV, the way you consume fiction generally, or are you able to kind of shut it off and just enjoy what's happening or whatnot?
I think I can shut it off because I do like a lot of things that most people don't like.
Hmm.
So like, I've liked basically all of the Marvel shows today. And a lot of people are just like, oh, this one's bad or this one is bad or all of them are bad except for this one or something. But
Right.
like I've liked all of them. Or maybe I'm just yeah, so I think I can shut it off, but sometimes it's hard. Sometimes, I do notice some stuff. I'm like, I'm watching something and I'm like, they didn't have a plan for this show. They're just kind of winging it. And you can tell that the writers are like, it's just going to be about like ghosts or something. I don't know. And like, then they kind of wing it as they
Mhm.
go along. And I mean, I loved Supernatural, but at a certain point, they definitely started to wing it. I knew what they were doing. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I kind of I can pick up on that stuff, but I usually like turn it off, and it usually doesn't really affect me because I mean I still loved Supernatural, for example, right? So I just, but I do notice um
Mhm.
some of those things based on I guess my background maybe.
Yeah. I mean, maybe it's just when you can tell a show is starting to lull or jump the
Mhm.
shark or whatever. Yeah, I mean but I gather the best shows, even when they're starting to where's this going? What are we doing? Oh,
Mhm.
they can actually hide it and pick it up. And
Yeah.
fair enough. Yeah. Okay, so this is a Star Wars podcast, technically. Hey, diversions are great, and general story questions are great. But yeah, let's actually dive into talking about Star Wars and Star Wars in general. The question that gets often asked: what is your Star Wars origin story? Did you grow up more with the original trilogy, with the prequels, and within that, growing up, what was your favorite film? Who are you drawn to? What characters? What storylines? Um, what would you say? I know it's a problematic phrase, but what would you say is your Star Wars?
Right. So I think just based on my age, if people can tell, I'm a little younger than some of the, the original Star Wars fans. So I definitely grew up with the prequels, and when I realized, I mean, I've seen the originals too. Like my parents are very, you know, fair to all the movies. Like they all got equal viewing time, so it wasn't, you know, um, it wasn't just the prequels. But I'd for me, like that's what all the toys were about. They were about like the prequels. They're the Battlefront, and the Xbox 360
Nice.
was about like
Yeah.
prequels, and I remember playing as Grievous and cutting my brothers down and them cutting me down. It was fun. But yeah, so prequels, and specifically I think for me it's the Phantom Menace because Darth Maul is really cool.
Yeah.
He was like my favorite. I went to Disney in like I don't know, like 2007,
Mhm.
um and Downtown Disney before Galaxy's Edge. I built like a lightsaber there, and they still have it. I think you can still build a
Mhm.
lightsaber in Downtown Disney, and I built a Maul lightsaber because I loved him, and I mean I still do, and yeah, his scene, his scene it still holds up
Mhm.
against Obi and Qui-Gon Jinn. But yeah, like I think that's for me. I'm actually surprised that people um like in high school, I think I started to realize that people hated the like not just the Phantom Menace, but
Right.
the prequels, and I was like surprised and like kind of hurt because I liked them and I didn't see any issues like with them. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you have a
Days before
particular?
Twitter. Sorry, go ahead,
Did
Joe.
you ever consider? Did you have like a particular scene that you can remember as a kid? That kind of like that's when it clicked for you. When like, ooh, I love Star Wars. Like like a certain scene from any of the films. Like if you can remember any one in particular that
Uh,
really did it.
from
That like
from
that's
the
the hook
like
from the
even
films.
okay, so I think for me,
Mhm.
like it would be when I feel like I'm picking all the worst ones,
Oh,
that people think are the worst, but the Force
There are no worst
Awakens.
ones.
The Force Awakens. I loved it. I loved
Mhm.
it, and
mhm.
I think it had, that magical kind of introduction for people who didn't really maybe follow the first couple series,
Mhm.
and it had that like that energy, like that like the epic energy, and it was so good. It was like like it was so good. It definitely ha- reignited my love for Star Wars after I
Mhm.
saw that. And then every subsequent movie or show that came out after that, like I was so excited. Like I was so excited to see everything because it just blew me away.
Mhm.
Just the acting, the settings, like bringing
Yeah.
back the Millennium Falcon, and like is just so in the chase with the Falcon is so cool.
Mhm.
It was so cool. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, especially I mean the iconic moment for me in is on Takodana, the X-wings just coming in, and yeah, I mean the
Yeah.
energy of that film
Hmm.
definitely, uh, both in the real world and in the film. There's more to it. I need to give it more love than I do. Yeah, I hear that. Maybe this gets to my next question. Then, has been your favorite film or even show, novel, comic, Star Wars story overall in the Disney canon specifically? So since 2014, you know, being as part of other than the ones you've worked on yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
Um, so I think so far, for the recent stuff, I guess, for the Disney stuff.
Mhm.
Either, The Force Awakens, or the final season of the Clone Wars. I really liked that. I thought that was really cool. Ahsoka's fight scene with Maul was, when I was watching it, I was like, they definitely did some mocap for this because of the movements. They were just so, yeah. I rewatched it like, I don't know, like twice now, I think. So, and it's just really, really cool to see that like blend of animation and motion capture for the actors and the voice actors. Yeah.
I mean, it really helps heighten the drama of those moments, especially in the throne room there. One thing I meant to ask when you mentioned Maul, do you remember what your reaction was? I guess would have been what season it is, season 3 or 4 of Clone Wars, when he comes back. It's season 3.
I was like, I don't know. I mean, it was a while ago that I first saw him come back, and I don't really remember my reaction. I probably was like, no way. Like literally like, no way, because he got cut in half and that's crazy. But I just kind of go with it because everyone comes back. Palpatine came back. Everyone comes back, like except for Qui-Gon. He's always a ghost, so that's fine.
I mean, they set it up with the Night Sisters and their magic and that crystal ball and everything. So yeah, maybe they had to just to make people not freak out as much. Yeah, that's fair.
Mhm.
Well, I mean, what is it about Maul specifically that attracts you or draws you?
Well, like for me, I think I like the version of him in the Phantom Menace because he didn't say much, and I love that like mysteriousness, and that kind of like he doesn't need to say anything. All he needs to do is like fight you, and he's serious. With that double-bladed lightsaber. Yeah, I think when they added a little more backstory to him and gave him, just more characterization. I don't know. I think that threw me off a bit because I really liked the mysteriousness. That was what got me. And so when, you realize, oh, he wants, to show Palpatine who's better and, work with Savage and get back at Palpatine and, run his own. It's like a whole, it's cool, but it's just like, now now he's not so mysterious.
That's
Joel.
It's fair. I was curious if since you are a Maul fan, did you ever read any of the Maul books that came out before the Clone Wars? There were some
No.
Gotcha.
No. I mean that kind of tracks with you wanting to preserve the mystery and the sheen of
That's true.
That's fair. It's maybe a slightly awkward segue, but one thing I do want to address, kind of a bant in the room for this podcast, is we've had mostly white dudes on here far too late, to have more diverse voices. I don't want to dwell too much on it, but I do want to address your uniqueness of your experience, in your ethnic identity, gender identity, and just, I mean, I know these are personal dimensions, but how might those shape the way you see Star Wars, the way you engage with fans and fandom community, and the way you see the story itself?
I think like, I don't know.
That's fair.
Yeah. But I think I don't know. I'm not sure exactly how it differs because I've never been like a white guy. But I do notice that a lot of them, the white guys, like to complain, and I know like I always say, when people ask me like, oh, like, do you like all of Star Wars? Do you like some of the stuff? Because I feel like this one was bad or whatever. I go, oh no, I like all of it, even like the bad stuff, or bad stuff, because you know, it all adds value to the story and the universe, and I really like, you know, getting more, you know, context to the universe. That's what matters to me. So I don't know um that, because I've been very lucky. I think I've never been you know, harassed about like liking anything, and I've never been, yeah, I've never felt like I couldn't like Star Wars. Like ever since I was little, I've always liked it. I think I'm just a weird person where I'm just like, I like what I like. If you guys dislike that I like this stuff, then you're insane. I don't know. So I just view them as like insane people. So I don't know. I've never really.
That's great.
I think I'm just like a weird. I think it works for me though. I think it's good that you know, the drama doesn't really get to me, and I've never had anything like that in my life so far. So that's good. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah, owning the weird. I mean, that's
Yeah.
that inspiring, frankly. That
That's
I
what I
know.
like. You know? You kind of like what you live
Yeah.
your truth.
Yeah, it's,
Exactly.
you know, I mean, just thinking about how, you know, fans of the prequels back in the day, you know, I mean, wading into that, Joel, we've explicitly called you a sequelist because, you know, you like all three films, and you know, and that's rare, but we gotta encourage that. We gotta move forward with that. And so Megan,
Yeah.
I'm glad that you've had a more positive story to tell, and hopefully continue telling that positive story. Speaking of your story and speaking of comics, let's dive into that. So I'll tell the story. March Comic Con, Toronto Comic Con. I'm walking around Comics Alley and looking at the tables, and you know, High Republic Phase 1 had been pretty great so far. It had become my favorite thing in Star Wars, and I see on this table, I see this comic book right here. Well, it's actually this one right here. There you go. And it's okay. We got a variant here with Lula Talisola, and you know, this is the I guess, yeah, I think I got this from your own website. So thanks for sharing it. But yeah, this is the retailer incentive cover for IDW's High Republic Adventures number 12 by Daniel Jose Older. You know, like, whoa, there's a High Republic artist here, and I got excited. Really excited to meet you, and I will say you are incredibly approachable, incredibly friendly, and
Thank you.
Yeah, and just, you know, being, you know, available on the convention circuit, available to come on podcasts. So glad to see you getting this kind of success that you've had. You know, you guys have had a good look at that. I'll drop it down. How did you start getting into art and into drawing, and then into also writing comics? And we'll get to a bit more of that. But where did you get your start in the comics industry?
So I basically, you know, I definitely had a slow start with it, as everyone does. You just want to break in, and there's no, like, it's so hard to break in, because it's like you have to already be broken in to break. It's so weird. But so it's just like it's a weird thing, and you just either give up or you keep pushing, and I kept pushing because I had nothing else to do. Like there's nothing else I wanted to do, and I had nothing else to do. So yeah, I eventually, I'm gonna skip all the boring stuff, but like I eventually got asked to work with Action Lab, that's now like defunct, but for good reason. But I got work coloring there, and then from there I had some more, you know, professional work under my belt, and then, you know, I continued to build my portfolio, and that snowballed, and I got asked to do some work with Dark Horse, and then my friend Adam Gorham, who is really nice, really amazing, and I think he deserves all the work, and I just feel bad because he's been so bummed out with the industry lately, and I just, oh, Adam, he's been so supportive of me, so I wish I could. I just don't know. But anyways, Oh wait, I'll talk to him later. um, but yeah, like he gave me what really boosted me was he gave me all these emails for different publishers that I still like, I've reached out to them. I reached out to them this morning, some of them.
Nice.
And he gave me contacts for Boom, he gave me contacts for IDW, um Valiant even. Um and not everyone gets back to you, but that really helped boost my career because I started to get like more work from the different publishers and more work with Dark Horse and more work, from all over. And um, I don't even know how actually started to get work with Oni Press, but I did, and I don't know. It's just been a lot. So,
Yeah.
yeah, like it's just snowballed, and I hope it keeps snowballing. It doesn't plateau or go backwards because that would really suck for me. Yeah, I just got to keep pushing, and yeah, so it's been a lot of hard work, but I think it's paid off. Yeah.
Since I'm curious, since as you've been drawing, like what kind of styles do you think has influenced you, like any particular animated movies or series, or like what sort of, or pieces of artwork themselves, like what has sort of influenced your own drawing style, so to speak? Like what did you say?
So like I think I get influenced I don't know, like mostly by other artists, I think. So, I definitely looked at oh God, like Jim Lee. I don't really use any of his like stuff in my stuff really. But like he was like the first one I kind of like turned to and drew inspiration from. And Fiona Staples. I love her colors. And I think she does brilliant work. Bengal is my all-time favorite artist. And he's done work on Batgirl and Supergirl and Overwatch and all that. And he's like I draw a lot from him. So mostly artists, I think. Some cartoons and like or animated kind of works like inspire me too. So I haven't watched it yet, but I have a lot of screenshots, same from the show Primal. Yeah, I think it's gorgeous. I just haven't gotten around to watch it yet. I just went on Google and just screenshotted all like the best the best kind of thing lighting and stuff I could find for reference. And um I haven't really referenced Arcane, but like that's something I would definitely look at because it's just really beautiful. And yeah, so like animation, other artists, yeah, and yeah, mostly those things.
Well,
sorry, go ahead, Joe.
I was going to say the Gendy Tartakovsky connection to Star Wars with the 2D Clone Wars cartoon. There's that. So
yeah,
that should bring that up.
I mean, it seems to me, it's a little bit about who you know and then getting yourself known and putting yourself out there. How did you get known by the folks at Lucasfilm? How'd you get connected into doing at least starting with the covers for there's one of the Vader's Castle, Ghosts of Vader's Castle, I believe it was, and then of course for High Republic Adventures, and also I guess Marvel is also in the House of Mouse. How'd you get into Star Wars? And then related question, how does doing working for Star Wars differ from other maybe franchises, properties, independents?
Okay, so I think for like Vader's Castle, I think that was almost like a mistake because I think what they were doing was they wanted to bring in people who hadn't worked on Star Wars before to work on covers for, I don't know for specifically Vader's Castle, but the editor, I think he was looking for new people. So I think he didn't know that I was already working a little bit for coloring a short story written by Chip Zdarsky for I think High Republic Adventure.
Right.
No, it was like an annual kind
Yeah,
of.
it was the annual. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, so I think he didn't know, but I got to do the cover, thankfully, because he didn't
Mhm.
know. It's not like I would say anything. I'd be like, "Oh, actually, I'm working on this, so don't let me work on this cover." No, no, I would never say that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, that's smart.
so yeah, so yeah, and then like I said, I colored that Chip Zdarsky story,
Mhm.
um, and then Heather Antos was on Star Wars before it moved to Dark Horse,
Mhm.
and yeah, I asked her if I could do more, and she gave me that High Republic Adventures cover. And then it shortly after moved to Dark Horse, which I thought
Mhm.
I was like, oh no, but then I was like, wait a second, I've been working for them. Like, I'll just ask my editor if she can like put me in touch with this other editor, and she
Mhm.
did. And the other editor reached out. She was like, "Do you want to do like 3 issues or whatever?" And I was like, "Yeah." And so
Mhm.
I'm signed for 3 issues.
Mhm.
That one I did isn't the last one, but I haven't had any plans
Mhm.
from like I haven't been asked to do more,
Okay.
yet. But contractually, I get to do more.
There we go.
Yeah.
That's always nice.
It's on the pipeline. And I guess you're talking specifically about Hyperspace Stories number
Yes.
2.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that came out a few weeks ago, and yeah, I
Yeah.
listened to my Tractor Beam review about it, but really exciting. Yeah, and we'll get into Hyperspace Stories in a few minutes. But Joel, you had a question there. Go for it.
Well, obviously, since we've done Dark Horse as well, I'm curious. Have you read or have seen any of the classic Dark Horse Star Wars stuff? Because Dark Horse used to be kind of the home for Star Wars comics for several
Yeah.
decades, going back to Dark
Um,
Empire and all those good ones, Legacy.
Mhm.
so I think he retired just after I worked with him. His name is Randy Stradley. He was my editor on Gia and the Neon Monster, except he worked on Star Wars before it moved to Marvel.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, and he's my friend on Facebook, and
Yes.
so he definitely he looked at Hyperspace Stories recently, and he was like judging it. He was like, "Oh, like if I was your editor, I would have done this and this and this." And I was like, "Okay, you can come out of retirement if you want. That's
There we go.
totally cool." But yeah, like
Yeah.
I definitely, I think I have some of the old books, but I haven't read them in like a billion years. And I think my brother actually has them.
Mhm.
I think I gave them to him, so just to make room for, the new stuff. Not that the
Mhm.
old stuff is bad, but
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So there is that connection
Mhm.
to the old Dark Horse work. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we've dove into Hyperspace Stories number 2. I'll bring up that cover again. And so you did both the cover and the internal art for this. So we talked about how you got picked up to do it. What was your process for working on this comic specifically, this issue number 2, and working with Cecil Castellucci? What's that like? And again, I'm going to mention something called the Marvel method, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But the whole idea that is prevalent among major publishers: one person does the story, another person does the art. And then again, we'll get into how you've been able to go beyond that for some other books. But what was the process for this issue specifically, and working with Cecil Castellucci?
Right. So, I mean, working with Cecil was pretty easy because I think it was really just she got the script done, and
Mhm.
then I kind of did it. I like started to work right after.
Mhm.
I think because of like the pace that things were going, um for whatever reason it was going pretty slow. Like they just kind of wanted me to like they were like, okay, now just start the art,
Mhm.
um as soon as you can, and I did. So I didn't really talk much with Cecil. If I had any questions, I went through the editor. And yeah, so I showed them. I started with the cover, um,
Mhm.
and then went into the interior pages, referencing the script. with the roughs, and then I once those were approved, I did the line art, and then I thought I was done at that point, and I wasn't, because the editor was like, "Oh, because okay, sorry, they switched editors. My previous editor, she left, and my new editor was like, "Oh, are you gonna color these?" And I was like, "Oh, I thought someone else was coloring them," because it was like coming up to the deadline. I was like, "Oh God!" And then he was like, "Oh, do you think you could? I really like your colors." And I was like, well, crap, now I have to do it. Like, he likes my colors. It's
Yeah.
Star Wars, you know.
Mhm.
I'm gonna get this done, and I did. And yeah, I'm happy I got to do kind of like basically all the art, and it was, which is really cool for Star Wars of all things. It was a lot of pressure, but I think it worked out as well as it possibly could under the amount of time I had. So yeah.
Yeah.
Do
I
you
mean,
ever?
no, go,
I was
Joe.
gonna say, do you ever have like that, like kind of, I don't know, I mean, that pressure whenever working on like Star Wars or like a big franchise? It's like, this is Star Wars. It's like this larger than life kind of a situation, or do you like are you able to like kind of mentally like focus on just treat it like any other work? It's like it's like you're not getting kind of wrapped up in like this is Star Wars. This is like the world's gonna look at this probably.
Yeah. I think, yeah, I think, initially there's that, oh, it's Star Wars, that you put that pressure on yourself. And then, I mean, for this series, I kind of put less pressure on myself, because it was like for the younger readers line. And it's not that younger readers deserve like poorer quality, but I just knew I could be a little freer with the way I worked, because, um, they wouldn't be as, you know, angry at me or something if I messed up on a character, or the way a character looked or something. Like, the older readers would be more unforgiving for sure. So but yeah, I definitely tried not to put pressure on myself while working on it.
Good.
It's like the only way to kind of stay sane is to just
Yeah.
think of it as something else to do, and just work towards the goal of getting paid, and and making
Yeah.
it look decent enough to print, and that's what I tried to do. That I
Yeah.
don't know if I fully succeeded, but I think I definitely tried, and that's all you can ask for.
I mean, maybe let me know if this is accurate or not. There does seem to be a trend for adult comics to go in a bit more of a photoreal direction,
Yeah.
and then for all ages, a bit more stylized. And so this leads to my question. I know I noticed, there were some style choices in this. I mean, I don't know, and I won't necessarily agree with your former editor, but they did stand out to me as distinct choices to go in a maybe more playful direction.
Hmm.
The book felt a lot, honestly, actually felt a bit like an indie comic.
Really?
Just
Okay.
yeah, just in in just going for. I mean, I think, for example, Leia's hair and appearance. There's like a bit more exaggerated is kind of what I'm going
Hmm.
there. And seems distinct. I mean, go looking at your website and some other things you've done, a
Yeah.
bit distinct from your other work. So I mean, you feel free to go get as detailed and nitty gritty. I'm all for that if you want. But how do you approach making those kinds of choices? For lines and colors, and a more exaggerated style versus a more photoreal style. And maybe a related question: how do you, in connecting to Joel's, how do you approach that in light of someone so iconic as Luke and Leia?
I think I definitely took into account as for the like kids line, or the younger readers line, and so I knew I could kind of get away with more exaggeration. Not that I want to get away with it, but like um for like Star Trek, um the anti-Star Wars. I know I love Star Trek.
Yeah,
Um
so
I actually submitted some work for that, some samples for that, but it
Mhm.
wasn't realistic enough. And I think overall, like, my work has this element of stylization, and I just feel like it, I've been considering resubmitting, right,
Mm.
the samples, but with a more realistic look. And I know I could do it. It's just, do I want to do it?
Mm.
And I think, I thought I kept that in mind when I was, working on my Star Wars comic. It's kind of like you have to be happy doing the work, or um, you're either not you have to be happy doing it, or it's not going to turn out very well,
Mhm.
or as well. So I try to. I think that was the big thing for me. Just trying to make sure I was happy working in the way I was working, and um, also keeping in mind it's for younger readers, and
Mhm.
they like the exaggeration. I liked the exaggeration when I was a kid, so I think they do too. I don't think anything's changed
Mhm.
since I've grown up. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Kids are kids, and the kids at heart are the kids at heart.
yeah.
As it was again encouraging that. Is there also maybe a sense of Star Trek? And I love Star Trek, and shout out to, you mentioned Heather Antos, who is the master, and she's
Yes.
basically handling Star Trek for IDW among other things, and managing their license brilliantly. Is there a sense, because Star Trek is more science fiction, realistic, grounded? This is Earth in 2400s or whatnot, and whereas Star Wars is this fantasy galaxy far, far away. Is there more of a sense that you're freer to do more stylized stories and stylized art, or um, I mean, yeah, I mean, again, I mentioned the adult versus all ages, but yeah, is there an element of that in there too?
Um, I think so. It depends on what though. I actually did a ship design. I actually forgot about it, and I might share it at some point, so you guys
Mhm.
will probably get to see it. But I did a ship design for the shuttle that takes Luke and Leia to the Kozil planet. I forget what
Mhm.
it's called. And then it's boxy kind of in the final. They said it's like a civilian transport, and
Mhm.
that's kind of what it ended up looking like. But before the first design, they were like, "Oh, this is too curvy. It looks too much like Star Trek." And I was like, "Oh,
Yeah.
okay." So it wouldn't work for Star Wars. And I think that, so they both have their, like, I could in Star Trek I could be freer with the ships, but the people would have to look photorealistic. And then in Star Wars, the people can look a little looser
Mhm.
and stylized, and the ships, but the ships, oh man, they have to look like the
Yeah.
ships. um
Yeah.
so I think, yeah, I think it's just different. Yeah, that just depends
Mhm.
on there it depends on the the franchise, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would be remiss not to ask then, what
Hmm.
is your favorite Star Trek series? If you can pick one.
Like 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 show.
Yeah,
Yeah.
what's your favorite show?
Oh. um I really liked, I have actually stopped watching it. I don't know why that was, but I really liked Picard. I thought it was great.
Mhm.
um Oh man, it's just, I love Patrick Stewart, or
Yeah.
Sir Patrick Stewart, because he's so
Yes.
fancy and knighted. But yeah, I think he's so great, and I think him
Mhm.
coming back is just like the best thing ever. I think he loves. You can tell he loves, like, you know what he does, and being Picard, and it's just,
Mhm.
yeah, it's great to see him. Yeah.
Cool.
Picard is better binged anyway, because you can get the whole story. It is
Yeah,
this
I think
unfolding slower. Yeah.
I think I was watching it episode by episode, and then
Yeah.
I got distracted. So
That's fair.
yeah.
Um, just in terms of ship design, yeah, I mean the internal logic, the internal language of an X-wing versus the Enterprise E, very different, right? Yeah, so I
Mhm.
can definitely see I see what the editors were getting at there, right? Is
Yeah.
Yeah, the X-wing is just very literally an X, a box, whereas Enterprise E is this more flowing, almost fish-like. So,
Yeah.
yeah, that's fair. So going back to specifically about Star Wars, yeah, sorry, seeing comments here. That's great. Yeah, so Hyperspace Stories number 2. You got the cover here for Hyperspace Stories number 3. That comes out November 9th, I believe. Still the story by Cecil Castellucci. Andy Duggan is doing the art there. But again, you got this cover of Finn Poe, one of my favorite ships. I don't know that neither confirm or deny that's canon, but it's certainly a fun dynamic view of this dynamic duo. Do you know anything about this book internally, and without any spoilers, can you maybe tell us about it? I
Yeah.
don't know if there's a publisher summary, but sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, sorry. Yeah, I can tell you. Yeah. So I got like I got a summary, which is really helpful. They for the story, basically, it's about like Poe and Finn, posing as farmers on a planet, and that's why they're kind of like wearing the overalls, and that Finn has a hat because farmers wear hats, and so I gave him a hat. But yeah, like, and then they realize that there's like an Imperial shipment or something on the train, and they have to infiltrate it. So they get on the train, and there's a whole. I think there might be a shootout, or either that, or they sneak around the guards. I think they sneak, and then they get discovered, which is how it goes. But yeah, I think that's kind of. I think that's the gist of it. That's as much as I know. Because they realized that I shouldn't be working on that issue because it's not my issue. But yeah, I got to do the cover, which is great.
Yeah. Really exciting dynamic. You do a lot of great work here. I mean, having not too much understanding about art and design, but with lines and motion, it really feels like they're on a fast track to danger there. So
yeah.
There we go. Yeah, I mean, maybe this is a bit of a larger question then. What is it like, maybe going between these different jobs, and specifically, the difference between doing maybe just the cover versus the cover and the art versus maybe the cover, the art, and we'll get to this in a minute, the actual story, the script. Is there a different workflow, maybe different focus, or just a matter of different time management and whatnot?
I mean, yeah, different workflow and different time management for sure. Yeah, and I think, yeah, so when I, just do the covers, I definitely put a lot more effort into the covers. And it's not like I don't put effort into like all of my work, which I try to. It's just I get to do it a lot more when it's just the cover purely, and I can just focus on that. And I think it turns out a little better that way. Not that I don't want that interior work. I love that interior work. But it's just it definitely, the covers definitely turn out a lot better when it's just them. And yeah, I think there is, because there's that pressure to get everything done with the the cover, the art, and sometimes the writing. So you gotta, like, at a certain point just say this is good enough and put it in the Dropbox or whatever, and yeah, just keep on moving on and getting those pages done. And I'm kind of like that with my with my current projects. Don't tell my editors. I'm just kind of trying to do my best, but at like at a rate where I'm going to meet that deadline. And they're like, oh, don't worry, like, it'll get done. It's okay if you need to like be like slow it down or anything. And I'm like, no, I have to meet that deadline. Like if I just feel like if I don't, like that might, be committed to memory, and they're like, she's slow, so maybe no more work for her in the future or something. So like, yeah, it's always a worry. So I always try to, get it done, get everything done. And even if it doesn't look like 100%, like I think I'd always try to make, I always try to make it look good, but sometimes I don't have the luxury of making it look perfect. And it's got to be fine.
Out of all the Star Wars characters you've drawn for, it's kind of a two-parter question. Who's your favorite to draw for, and who do you really want to draw for? Like, what character have you not drawn yet that you really want to draw, and who have you drawn who you really like drawing for?
Like for the official books?
Yeah, for the official books.
So I think who I've done and who I really like drawing is probably like I actually really liked Finn and Poe. I think they were really fun to draw together. I think I was a little yeah.
We can tell you enjoyed that. That's it comes through.
Yeah, I think Finn, especially just because I really want to see him as like a full Jedi at some point. That'd be exciting for me, and I just kind of got excited that I might be a part of his story a little bit to get to that point. If he ever does, but I hope he does. So I liked them, and I would definitely draw them again, or definitely Finn. Poe, not so much. I'm kidding. No, I like Poe. But yeah, I think who I would like to draw, it would be like Ahsoka, and Cal Kestis. So like those are my two bucket lists ones, and I guess Obi-Wan, but I'm not as like excited as like Ahsoka or Cal. So he's great though. He's a great character, but yeah.
I mean, two characters that have not gotten hardly. Well, Cal hasn't gotten any comics, and then Ahsoka, very few. I'm trying to remember. I'm trying to scratch my head. I don't remember if Ahsoka has gotten any comic books yet.
Yeah, I
no. Old Canon, yes.
Oh yeah, maybe Legends during Clone Wars. Yeah, that's true. In canon, that's which is kind of shocking given how publishers. I mean, writing a story of younger in her life. Obviously Lucasfilm, Filoni is going to want to leave her live action stuff to himself, but two great characters to write for. Speaking of Cal Kestis, right? I mean, Sam Maggs. We actually chatted about this at Fan Expo. We're writing that novel. That's super exciting.
I pre-ordered it.
Oh yeah, I got to get on that too. That's true. I guess kind of brings up. What was it? Kind of backtracking here. So we're talking about characters and art and covers, and you talked about the workflow and whatnot, and I thought about Phil Noto, who on the one extreme, he's made a career, and in a very rare exception of primarily a cover art. He does internal art too, but whether doing the Han and Chewie comic, I think he's doing some other things. I know he's doing some other things for Star Wars. I think he does some of the one-offs for the Darth Vader on the Marvel side. And so there's that. That's extremely rare. I've mentioned this a number of times. We called you a comics artist. Simple way of introducing you. That doesn't paint the whole picture. See what I did there? Getting back to that question about the Marvel method. Not to knock it, it works. It seems to work for a lot of contexts, a lot of books, a lot of publishers. But you've had success beyond it with your creator-owned Rangers of the Divide for Dark Horse, and lots of smaller publishers have done that. Dark Horse isn't that small. How did you convince Dark Horse to to do that. I gather there was a story pitch in there too, but how'd you get them to let you do the cover and the art and the story and everything?
Well, I think earlier in the podcast here, I mentioned that I worked with Randy Stradley, former Star Wars editor on
Right.
GN the Neon Monster, and from there, and also it wasn't just him; it was Judy Koo, who's my current editor on Rangers, and so I asked Randy, first of all, I said, can I pitch? Because, GA is coming to an end. Can I pitch something? Because I've been working on. And he said, yeah. And like, he kind of, retired just as I kind of, I think, asked about it. And then Judy, took charge, and she really helped me to refine the pitch, which is going above and beyond. It's crazy for like an editor just to do that and like take the time to help you refine a pitch. And yeah, so I owe her like a lot. I'm so appreciative to this day. So she made it, she helps me make it presentable to the the guys up above, I guess. And they were like, okay, we'll accept it, whatever, and so they picked it up, and they were okay with me writing it, drawing it, lettering it, doing basically everything except for like the editing, of course. So yeah, like it was great, and I think I'm lucky that way. I don't really fully realize still like how like weird it is for someone to actually get that offer to do it all themselves, and get it picked up and everything. And I think it's definitely a big deal, but I don't know, as someone, who's in it, like I can't, I think, I don't know. It's just, it's a big deal, I guess.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty happy. I mean, I'm pretty grateful that they accepted it, and and it's still getting made, like series 2. I'm working on it right now. So yeah,
it's pretty cool. Yeah, I haven't had the time to read it. I know I did buy first volume from you at Toronto Comic. That's another great thing about Artist Alley and Comic Alley. You can just directly support the creative right there. Is there something to it being a creator owned? And I need to read up more on the nitty gritty of this, the details about the industry there, but about how you would have absorbed more of the risk too, if it didn't quite work out. And did that help them agree to let you do this?
Yeah. So, in the contract, I had to make it a little more appealing to them, right? By kind of like splitting it with them and giving them a bit like a higher percentage than they would have, typically gotten, just because of that risk. So for the first series, for the singlet issues, it was 70% for me, 30% for them. And it's always 50-50 on the collected trades. Series 2, it's 80-20. And so I definitely, it gave me a little bit more the second time around, but I'm still not sure that they fully trust like to get enough out of it. I hope so eventually, that they kind of get over that. But I definitely, that was incentive for them to like pick it up, I think. So
I mean, they're like you said, they're still going with it, and that's encouraging. And I'm talking about it as such a weird, rare thing. I think it's a brilliant thing. I think it's, I mean, there's a reason why the origins of comics were like this. Obviously, there's a reason why Stan Lee and them went in another direction. But I'll ask you, and maybe I'm putting you on the spot here, and saying this is a safe place, and I do think it's a great thing. Lucasfilm, pitch them. You have maybe don't worry about a story pitch specifically, because I
Mhm.
mean I would want you to go and actually do that in the real world. But here, just say you had a meeting with the Lucasfilm folks and the Dark Horse folks to do a both write and do the art for a Star Wars comic. How would you convince them of the storytelling potential, the operational potential of that, especially with everything you've learned from Rangers?
I definitely kind of know how to do a pitch now. I mean, the structure of it, and
Mhm.
um, I actually made, I did make a pitch for Star Wars. I submitted it, but I'm realizing that it might be, they might already be doing a story that covers like what
Yeah.
I wanted to do for one of the shows. So I was like, crap, I just came up with that, and now it's I think going to be retconned. Wait, well, not retconned, but like,
Yeah.
you know, already done. So yeah, I definitely, whenever, if I were to make a pitch like I did, I definitely tried to look for an opening in the universe where it, there's like um stuff that hasn't been like kind of discussed about the character yet, or
Mhm.
revealed about the character's life yet, and I'm like, well, that's my opening, that's
Yeah.
my gap in their life where I can fill that in for people. So I definitely try to look for those kind of possibilities when I submit um any pitch. um and yeah, so yeah, and I definitely try to um put concept art in there too, to give them incentive to pick it up. I'm like, oh, look what I can see. I gave them a new outfit and it looks really good. Like, you should
Yeah.
pick it up. So
Yeah.
you show them what I can do. Yeah.
And then, I mean, specifically, you know, what you found, and the benefits and the success that you found with Rangers. Like, what would you maybe say to them about why is this the process a good idea, as opposed to the way everyone else usually does it?
Like my creative process.
Like, what, like, to both write the story in the script and do the art.
I think the only reason it's a good idea is because you have control, and as someone, I guess, who's a bit of a control freak, I really value that.
Mhm.
That I get to kind of control where the story goes and kind of control how things look. Like, um, I think it would be hard for me to just write something and then have someone else draw it. I wouldn't be like um, sassy about it to the artist or anything, because I know
Mhm.
you're never going to get it like how the writer envisions it. It's just not possible unless they like communicate with you like
Mhm.
telepathically, and beam you messages from their brain, and
Yeah.
beam you visuals. Uh, but like, um, yeah, I really like that control. Um, and I don't know, but even then, like, um, when you have that control, you still mess up and it still doesn't turn out how you
Yeah.
want it sometimes. And it's just like, even with all this power I have, it's still not good enough.
Unlimited. No, wait. Yeah.
I guess to just kind of make me one more broader question, bit of a silly one, but like if you could meet like any comic book artist, it could be someone who's even passed away a long time ago. Like, is there anyone you wanted to meet, either who's currently working or has retired, or is just no longer with us? Like any of the classics. Sorry, and just kind of say hello and maybe asking the question like, who would you love to like really meet as a fellow comic book artist?
Um, So I think anyone I would really like to meet, I would hope that they really liked me because I just want to like if I love someone, I want them to like me. I want them to like not. I don't want it to be that like never meet your heroes kind of thing, you know.
Of course.
So I think I really hope for that, but I
Mhm.
think who I would want to meet in person would be like, you know, I already got to meet Sean Gordon Murphy. He
Mhm.
was great. He was intimidating, but he was so nice.
Mhm.
Um, and so he's off the bucket list. So the next one would be like Bengal. Um, and he's, you know, pretty great. He's doing some Star Wars stuff too, eh? He's doing a lot of covers. And I pre-ordered one, Yoda one.
Nice.
And yeah, he's really great and he's really talented and I haven't met him in person yet. I've spoke to him like
Mhm.
via Twitter DMs and you know, just Twitter and yeah, not anything like live like this or even
Mhm.
in person. So I mean I'm really hoping for that one day. I keep on asking him, I'm like, are you gonna come to Canada or the States or something? Come to this continent because he lives in France.
Mhm.
So
Right.
and he goes, no, not in the near future. And I'm like,
Right.
okay, I hope I don't die before you get here. Like, but yeah, I would love to meet him in
Mhm.
person, and he's married to another artist who's very, very talented, and I would love to meet her too. So
Mhm.
it would be great. It is 2 for 1.
There we go. I hear there's a big Star Wars convention happening pretty close to France
Is there?
in
Oh,
April.
okay.
Yeah, Star Wars
Is it
Celebration
another
Europe.
celebration?
Yeah, Star Wars Celebration Europe
Yeah, yeah.
in London. So, and I'm all, uh, I'll say this on Lucasfilm if you're watching, she's drawn a Star Wars. Let her go.
Yeah.
uh, there we go. Yeah, I mean, I think those are all the questions we've got. We got one viewer comment here, and this relates to what you were talking about with editors and deadlines and whatnot. And great that editors are able to say, "Oh, don't worry about it," but you know, it makes sense that you definitely have a very professional attitude about getting it done. And I know editors actually they say one thing, they definitely love a good deadline.
Yeah.
Um, and, you know, how many times do you have to work on something to get it right? Similarly, then you said you just realize, okay, it's good enough. Uh, how do you come to that point, and uh, what is that point like where you say, okay, this is as good as it can be, have to submit it?
So I think it differs for you know, for like Rangers, it's kind of like what I feel is good enough and
Mhm.
what the editors might suggest. They always Judy is always like, "Oh, um we just have some suggestions for this cover. It's not like you have to follow these suggestions to the letter. It's just it's up to you, you know." And
Notes, yeah.
um so with that, it's a little freer. And I don't redo covers really.
Mhm.
I don't ever start from scratch and scrap them. I usually try to tweak them because it's going to take forever to start all over again. I don't want to do that. uh, but for something like Star Wars or any of my IP kind of stuff like Agretsuko
Mhm.
or My Little Pony that I've worked on too. Yeah, it's done when Hasbro or Lucasfilm or um, Sanrio is happy. You know,
Mhm.
it's when they're happy. Um, so even if I want to do more, like at that point, it's probably best to just leave it at that and just
Interesting.
so they're happy and because at the end of the day, it's them saying it's done versus
Mhm.
the editors versus me. So
Right.
um yeah, I definitely, but for everything though, I definitely don't restart from square one, and
Mhm.
I just take their suggestions to heart, and I add the tweaks
Right.
until it looks right to me or to the IP holders, whomever that may be. Yeah.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah. It's a business. there are professionals that need to have these deadlines. That's fair. And I mean, what's come across in the last hour and 10 minutes is both how personable you are and how professional you are. And
I do have actually one
Yeah.
more, just kind of
yeah,
working with
so one
Lucasfilm
more,
question.
go for
Just
it.
one. It's like, have they ever given you? And I've heard some stories when it comes to creators. I'm curious. It's like, have they ever given you notes on your Star Wars stuff? It's like, oh, this TIE fighter needs to look a little bit more like this because it's like we want to be consistent with our lore and stuff.
Like
Or
the
like,
canon
Yeah.
consistent stuff. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, stuff like that. I'm actually surprised because they didn't really have many comments about the vehicles except for the one that looked like Star Trek. Um, um, but after that Star Trek ship, everything else like turned out pretty okay, I think. Or maybe they knew that they were running out of time, that we were running out of time for the book, and we needed to get it done. So maybe they did have stuff they wanted to say, but they couldn't because of the lack of time. I yeah, but there are some things they're like, I don't know if it's just for the children's or the younger readers line, but they said don't point the blasters directly at the reader. They said never do that, never do it. And I was like, I didn't ask why, because I didn't want to like seem like I was challenging them, because I wasn't. I would have just been asking out of curiosity, but there's no point really. And also always have sparks coming from the lightsaber emitter, like this like little flare kind of near the emitter. So even after the lightsaber's like been on for a while, it just always have that flare. Is what they want. So yeah, they are specific on some things. But yeah, I think they kind of let go at a certain point because it's just a theory, but I think it's just because we needed to get it done, and we all knew that we needed to just keep going and put the book out. Yeah.
That's fascinating. Like I said, I live for those details and those things. And this whole again, hour and 10 minutes, really insightful. Thank you so much for going into just all the nitty gritty and the big picture, and especially taking the time. I know you have a lot on the go, so very, very grateful. Is there anything you want to plug in particular? Where can people find you on the internet, etc.?
Right. So they can find me on Twitter, Instagram, I guess Facebook, but I don't really know how to plug Facebook, and I don't really like Facebook, so probably just better to follow me on Instagram and Twitter. So at Megan Huang, MEGANHUANG, and the number 5 after that. And my profile picture should be of like a dragon and the rider from Rangers. And I mean, I guess I could plug my books, like Rangers coming out this month, Arc 2. So issue 1 of Arc 2. So, add that to your pull list if you like sci-fi and fantasy, and dragons and adventure. So, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, your social media, you throw a lot of just art that you draw for fun, for just like, I mean, I saw House of the Dragon art, and then you do just ideas that you put up there. I really appreciate that, and definitely definitely check out Rangers Hyperspace Stories, and I want to go to your local comic book shop. Yes, for Tractor Be My due to the Amazon Comixology links, but there's also the brick and mortar stores, local stores to check out. Yeah, again, thank you so much for your time. I'm gonna time to wrap things up here. You can find us on Twitter and Instagram at Ion Canon Pod. And Joel, where can they find you on your social media?
You can find me at GID 2021, again GID 2021, and I also do a lot of our own Twitter stuff at the Ion Canon Pod. So follow us there.
Yes, and then you can follow me on Twitter. I do tweet a lot about Star Trek and Game of Thrones and other things. NEUG485, Instagram MNEUG1138, and again, Ion Canon Pod. Also at the SWU, everything going on there. in the fandom fam. Next week, probably go into favorite canon moments and question about tone in Star Wars. But for now, again, Megan, thank you so much. Joel, Megan, let's blow this thing and head home.
Okay. Thank you.